Welcome to the My Messy Grief podcast. I'm Cindy Schuffelbarger, a bereaved mom and the founder of P23 Retreat, where we create space for parents to grieve. In each episode, I'll chat with a guest to learn about outlets for our grief in everyday life. By processing grief in healthy ways, we can learn to find joy again while still honoring and remembering our beloved. I'm so glad you're here, and I invite you to be fully present and just rest as you listen. You might laugh, you might cry, you might be inspired. Whatever emerges, you have permission to be curious, to learn, and to explore. So let's get started with today's guest. Out in my yard, and that's how I will spend part of my lunchtime each day. It just settles me, calms me, and gets me outside in nature. So anyway, welcome. We're super excited that you are here today. So I just want to start. Can you tell me a little bit about how you became interested in hammocks?
So, I grew up, North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina,
Okay.
beach life. So when I was 10, I think, 10-ish, we took a trip on the ferries from Cedar Island up to Ocracoke and Hatteras. And before we went back west, Nags Head was the last stop. And I remember buying a hammock, at the same store that my office is in now, which is
that's great.
kind of weird. We bought a swing. And so we've had a hammock, I had a hammock in my backyard my whole life. My sister still has that swing. She had it in her bedroom for a long time. So it's kind of just it was always just sort of a normal thing for me to have.
Part of the landscape, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't you lucky?
I am. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I didn't really think about how much of like a full circle thing it was to come back and manage the brand and Nags Head Hammocks until I, got one and took it back to my parents' house and gave them a new one and pulled the old one down. It was kind of cool.
Sounds like that old one's had a good lifespan though.
Yeah, I think, this was like over 30 years ago. And so
Wow.
I think they're on their third one now.
Okay.
Which, that's kind of how it works. People come in and say, I've had this for 18 years. We joke that we make them too good,
Right. That's great. Well, we're all about grief here, and people know grief in lots of different ways. And it's just a part of life. And so I love to help people use everyday kind of things and experiences to help process grief. And so grief can often, as you've experienced probably at times, as I've experienced, it can be very heavy, disorienting, and even exhausting. So hammocks, both practically and maybe even metaphorically, can become a healing space in that experience. Can you share some physical ways that being in a hammock can help us grieve?
Yeah, I think kind of the way that a hammock moves,
Mm.
really subtle, sway, and it kind of cradles you, it's very comforting. And you kind of feel it wrap around you. It's like a safety net.
Mm.
You feel like you're hanging in the air, but you know that you're not gonna fall anywhere. And you're also just sort of forced to look up at the sky, which I think for me is really powerful, like the being outside, looking up and getting some perspective of the sky and the trees and listen to the birds or crickets or waves or the wind. That's a really powerful kind of thing for me to gain perspective over things sometimes and to just, centers me a little bit. So being in a hammock kind of makes you do that.
I love that. That image of maybe even like a hug and that support.
Right.
And yeah, that safety net. Perfect. Love that. So grief can pull us either into chaos or numbness, or sometimes we see this tug between the two extremes. What do hammocks offer that help counter that, maybe emotionally or physically? And you might have touched on this a little bit already, but how do you think that it brings us back out of the chaos or to feel things instead of that numbness?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the feeling of being in a hammock for sure, but also I remember growing up and, seeing a hammock in your backyard. You bought that for a reason, right? I mean, you put it there because, at one point you valued relaxation or solitude or the silence that you get. And so sometimes it can be really, whether it's grief or just everyday stress, you can go days without thinking, you know what, like 5 minutes would do me a world of good. And if you see that hammock in your backyard, just the sight of it, this psychological reminder that, like, you know what, like, you remember that feeling, you remember being in the hammock, just seeing it. So I think that that can be just a trigger to remind yourself of a time when you did, get kind of revitalized or comforted by just taking 5 minutes out of your day to do nothing. You have to
Right.
do nothing in a hammock. You can't really do anything
Right.
in a hammock.
You can listen to music, but
Yeah, you can do some
yes.
things, but you can't really do anything stressful,
Right.
especially if you're kind of disciplined and you leave your phone inside for 5 minutes. It's kind of like a safe space.
Yeah. And I love that too, that visual. It's an invitation, right? Just
Right,
calling to you, like, oh, I want to feel that. Like you said, even 5 minutes can make a world of difference. That's sometimes
right.
all that I can get out there in a day.
Yeah.
But there's something that redirects or transforms my perspective in those few minutes. And so having your hammock in a visual place is that invitation to come
Yeah,
and
it's got to
rest.
be one of the most recognizable kind of, things in the world, right? I mean, everyone knows what a hammock is, and everyone kind of knows what it signifies, like what it means. It's,
Mm,
it is just a signal that it's important to relax.
right. So, okay, so then how do you find this different than other relax? There are lots of ways to relax these days, right? You can
Right.
go get a massage, you can take a nap. So what
Yeah.
makes this kind of rest or relaxation different by being in a hammock?
I mean, I think, it's getting in a hammock is like walking out to it and getting in it is kind of a level of commitment, you know.
Right.
It, so, it's not the same as like coming in and just dumping your bag on the ground and flopping on the couch,
Mm,
right? Like you can do
right.
that, and then what do? You turn the TV on or you pull your phone out, and all of a sudden an hour's gone by and you haven't made dinner or whatever, right? Like I think making the decision, like taking the step to say, okay, like this is the time of day when I'm going to devote to my meditation, my mental health, whatever it might be, and going and getting in the hammock. And like I said, ideally leaving your phone, somewhere where you can't hear it. Just making the decision is a big step to do it, right? Even if it's not an hour, like the act of deciding and committing, your time to yourself,
Right.
and kind of, I mean, I don't know that I've said it out loud, but I think in my family, like if someone's in the hammock, you kind of let them be in the hammock. Like no one's dragging
There's
me
not a
off.
do not disturb, but
Right,
it's unstated, right?
right. Like if I'm on the couch, even if I'm in the bathroom, like my kids are banging on the door. But
Right.
if I'm in the hammock, it's like dad's in the hammock.
I love that. I love that. And this intentionality, like this, you
Right,
said in the beginning, this commitment. For me, maybe it's because I don't have the nicest hammock, but it is a commitment to get in it because sometimes I miss, like I overshoot or
right. No,
flip
no. I
out the
mean,
other side.
even a
So,
nice hammock, you have to kind of know how to get in it, right? And
right,
you
right.
have to go out there and do it. And yeah, like you said, the intentionality, that's a good, I like the way you put it.
Yeah, great stuff. So, all right, so what do you find most helpful? Obviously, that quiet, that do not disturb.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, what I want to move on to the talking about is part of grief healing, the healing and the grief process. What would you recommend for someone just starting out? They've never had a hammock. They're not sure that they are
Right.
going to make the commitment to it. Is there a certain style, a space that you'd recommend? What are your thoughts?
We do, I mean, we do a big traditional hammock, right? But we also make, hammock swings, right? So what that is like we basically take the body of a hammock, the square
Right.
woven part in the middle, and we sling it, in a wooden frame.
Mm,
Um, and you kind of get the same effect. So really, but I think the biggest thing is it needs to be somewhere, ideally like outside under a porch or under some trees or in your yard. If you don't, a lot of times if you don't have space for a big hammock, these swings that we make, are a much smaller footprint and they can
okay.
be hung almost anywhere. Um, And I think it just needs, mostly it's the location, honestly. Like, I think whatever, whatever type of hammock or whatever type of swing, hammock swing you can find or you can get into or you can put in your yard or in your house. The most important part is you need to be in an area where it's just you. And for me personally, like, especially living at the Outer Banks, like the nature and the sound of where we live is really important. I mean, we get so much stimulation from everything now that if you can get that, get out of that world for 5 or 10 minutes, it's super helpful. Some people meditate in the morning. But I think the main thing is it just needs to be somewhere where you're going to be comfortable to be totally on your own for a few minutes.
So, do you have a personal philosophy? Like, do you ban your phone in your hammock?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm super busy at work and I've got family and stuff like that. I mean, inevitably you're connected all the time. And
Right.
it's easy to say, I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to put my phone in my room for dinner or whatever, but then you're connected by someone else's
Yes.
device or the TV or conversation, which is good too. But yeah, it's like I said, it's just a commitment getting into a swing or a hammock. If you don't bring your phone into it, then you can't get it.
Right.
It's locked in a box somewhere, right?
Out
And
of
I think
reach, at
that's important.
least, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, out of
So,
reach.
how easy is it to install a hammock?
You can. So we also make stands. We manufacture stands,
Okay.
and so it's a big. We make them out of different materials. We have wood and steel. Our steel stand takes 90 seconds to put together.
Oh, wow.
It just kind of snaps together.
Really?
And you just hang the hammock on it. It
Okay.
literally, it probably takes longer to unbox the hammock if we
Oh,
were to ship it to you than it does to hang it up. Our hammocks, we tell people they'll last longer if they bring them inside in the winter, but most people don't.
okay.
Most people leave them out, and
Right.
you're still going to have it out there for years and years and years. If you get a decent quality rope, it's kind of just there. It's not, that's a fairly simple thing. So there's not a lot of different materials. If you were to need a swing, like you'd have to install it in the
Okay.
ceiling, which is actually also really easy. I mean, that's a lot of the people that we interact with, a lot of our customers, they do it all themselves. Most people
Okay.
aren't trying to hire anyone or anything like that to do a swing. They just drill a couple holes. But I mean, yeah, the hammock is so simple. I think that's why it's timeless, right? I mean, we've been talking about rope hammocks for like hundreds of years. I think it's just so easy to just hang one on. You can do trees. You can wrap some straps around a tree with a hook on the end. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it.
I am curious, personally, about the stands. Do you still get the movement if you're
Yeah.
using a stand?
Yeah, so a stand is the stands we make. It has 2 feet, right? So two bases, kind of, and it's a big arc. Or the steel one
Okay.
we make is a tri-beam, so it looks a little bit more like a
Gotcha.
triangular. And you're just creating 2 points in space where the hammock can
Gotcha.
be hung from. So I mean, you wouldn't know if you close your eyes, you'd be hanging between trees or posts or anything else, just like like you see in the pictures. But the stand, it really just simulates that for people who don't have trees in their yard, or if you don't have enough space between your trees or something like that.
Gotcha. How much space do you recommend between two trees? Sorry,
So
we're getting technical here.
right, yeah, yeah. Our hammocks are pretty big, so you need a minimum somewhere between 12 and 15 feet.
Okay.
Depending on, we have a couple different options, but somewhere between 12 and 15 feet. We can do a little bit of a custom hammock too and make it shorter. We've
Gotcha.
done that,
Okay.
but we don't want to make the body of the hammock too short because you need to
Sure.
fit in it. And once, so
Right.
that needs to be a certain length.
Gotcha. Good to know. Yeah. All right. So running a business that's all about rest and slowing down must be
Right.
interesting in today's culture. What have you learned about how people either resist rest or embrace it?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I'm lucky. I sell relaxation. That's what we like
Right?
to say, right? But it's super interesting how people interact with that. Especially in the Outer Banks, we get a lot of people from larger cities, from the Northeast and sometimes from the Midwest. And so many people, they come in and, they want to know information about how many colors and do we ship and warranty and care and maintenance and stuff. And they've not gotten into the hammock. And, we have to say, like, you need to get in one. And they kind of look and they're like, is it okay? We're like, yeah, like, get in the hammock. They still haven't slowed down. Like, they may have been on vacation for 3 days and they're still kind of thinking about, like, am I making the right decision? Is this a good investment? All the technical stuff, which obviously is important, but
right.
I mean, honestly, like, a big part of our business is just providing a space for people to come and hang out. Like, when we work with the town, and Kittle, all 3 of the towns we have stores in, there's regulations about what you can do on your property and in your yard and stuff. And, I always kind of say, look, like, you guys have to remember, like, this is kind of a town park. Like, we're between a lot of residential areas and we take up an entire block in Kittle Hills.
Wow.
So people walk through the property, they walk their dogs, they ride their bikes, and we regularly have people stop and just hang out. But it's
no
it's
pun
funny.
Intended, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we really do have to encourage a lot of people to get in them and just, don't worry. This is what it's for. This is why you came to the beach. This is why you came on vacation, because they, get so much stimulation all day from their phones and their cars and their watches. And I don't think we evolved to deal with all of that all the time.
I agree.
And it's really interesting to see people who are in that fast mode. And you have to say, you know what, like, you're going to be here for 4 more days and it's going to go by real fast. Like, you need to slow down and don't worry about, like, the warranty. Get in the hammock,
Get in the hammock. Love that. Yeah, it is interesting. I'm sure you see all sorts of folks come through, and and this is just kind of me personally reflecting. I feel like there is a sadness to the state of affairs, in that we think that we can only rest on vacation.
Right. Yeah, I know. And that's what and that's one of the things, that we try to remind people. I mean, one of our big billboards says, take the feeling home,
I love that.
I think it is kind of getting back to some of the first, things we talked about, just taking 5 minutes out of your day. I think relaxation, meditation, whatever you want to call it, it's just good for your mind and body and soul. And too many people wait all year to do it.
Right. I don't want to wait all year. I'd rather take the 5-10 minutes in a day. And then that prepares me for enjoying my vacation a little more, because I don't come so exhausted and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I want to have fun on vacation too, right?
You have this, I think there's this risk. It's like there's a name for it. Like, the people who work all their lives to go to, like, Paris, for example. Right. And then they get there. And, like, Paris is a big city. It's not the most beautiful place in the world. It's not as romantic as you've been building it up to be.
Right.
But they haven't been enjoying the lead up to it. And so they get depressed when they're there. They're like, oh,
right.
Like, all of this for nothing. So yeah, I think it's important to, take time for yourself every day. And that helps you manage all kinds of things. Obviously it can help you manage grief. It can help you be prepared for, grief that you may have to manage in the future.
Right. Yeah. Good point. So you guys were recently featured in your state magazine, right? Nags Head Hammocks. Can you tell me a little bit about that honor, and maybe share how our listeners could connect with you and learn more about you?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that was a great article. Our state magazine, which has a huge readership. And I grew up with that too. I love North Carolina. I've always lived here. I lived abroad for a while, but I always knew I was coming back to live in North Carolina. And they, they sent a couple different writers down to interview us, and a photographer who worked really hard to, deal with the weather. And it was shooting stuff over the winter. And, one of the quotes in there, Susan, one of our longest tenured employees and weavers, and she's done everything. She talked about how a swing can be a safe space, and a space with, like, this quiet confidence. I think she said, or comfortable silence is what she said, So that was great for us. I mean, we, we love, for people to be able to find out about us. And then in terms of just regular, connection and how to come visit, we have 3 stores in the Outer Banks. We've got one in Corolla and we've got one in Duck, and the Kidover Hills store is the one that most people kind of know of. We've been in that
Mhm.
building for over 40 years now.
Wow.
Um, and we have a website, nagshead.com. And that's got all of our products. But like I said, our stores are, we have social media, all that stuff. I mean, we have all the things, right? But the stores are beautiful, and they're really built for relaxation, and they really kind of remind people of what the Outer Banks was, 30, 40, 50 years ago. We haven't really compromised on that. We still invest a lot in the size of the property and the buildings, and we try to be period correct when we do renovations and repairs, which is
Nice.
a big part of living on the Outer Banks. You're constantly
Right.
repairing stuff. So, I mean, anyone that ever comes down here, visit's not complete without coming to visit us. And it's not you know, please don't come in thinking you got to buy something, right? It really just can be an experience. It's a pretty cool place.
I love that. So again, I'm going to plan a visit. I'm only about 3 hours from there, and
Yeah.
that's an easy enough drive. Maybe
Yeah,
spend
you
the
got to come
night. I
see
don't
us.
know.
We'll
Yeah.
hook you up with something. We'll
Um,
get you a new hammock or swing, or just take your time looking at all the different ways we've got our stuff set up.
I'm coming to get one.
Yeah.
I want to test drive it first. I
Yeah.
am curious to know what, as manager, have you, I'm sure you see all aspects of the business. Have you been involved with like design, production? What can you tell
Oh
me
yeah.
about that?
Yeah, so I joined Nags Head Hammocks at the general manager, director of retail level. And so when I moved back to North Carolina to do it.
Okay.
And when I moved here, I spent 6 weeks in our major production facility, which is a couple hours inland
Okay.
from the Outer Banks. And I learned how to weave hammocks. I learned how to build our hammock chairs and our Adirondack chairs that we also manufacture. Um, and we have our website and a few different channels that we sell our products, but I'm the person that interacts with the customers face to face. And so I take all kinds of advice on board, and people ask for certain things. And
Ah,
I think probably the thing since I've been with the business that we've just come up with based on demand. We have we have gliders now as well, and
oh,
so they kind of simulate the movement
movement.
of a hammock or a hammock swing without needing to hang it anywhere. So that's
Okay.
actually the simplest. It doesn't give you the same visual kind of psychological cue that a hammock does. I don't think.
Right.
Rope will always be our thing. That's hammocks will always be our thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, you sit in those gliders and you go, wow, like this is nice, and it's just easy. You pick it up and you put it in your house, and you don't have to
How-
hang it up. You don't have to do anything like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm very involved in that. I meet with the owner of the business and the vice president of production every week, and this is what we talk about. We talk about
oh,
what we think people want, and we're really lucky. We're really lucky that we get to solely manufacture product that we like, that we believe in.
right.
We don't really, it's one of the great things about having a 50-year-old business. We, of course, we have to run the business, but
Sure.
we don't have to, trick anyone. We don't have to come up with we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have this product range that, hopefully people will want forever. So we're really lucky that if we want something to be awesome, we just make it awesome.
Awesome.
We make it perfect for what people want.
I love that. And your whole business is just an invitation to rest and
Yeah.
pushing pause and slowing down. What a great thing to be a part of.
It is. I'm super fortunate, and all of us remind ourselves of that all the time. We're very lucky to be
That's
sort
great.
of a business that just promotes, you know, health for your mind and your
Right.
body.
Exactly. Well, Ryan, I'm so grateful for you for taking out time of your busy day to come talk to us a little bit about hammocks and the
Oh, thank
role
you.
they can play in grief. It's about to rain here today, so I might not make it into mine.
Right.
But
Yeah, we've been
it's
dealing with the wind and the rain down here all month, actually. So
uh
we're doing our
that
best to get
tis
into
the
it.
season, right?
It is, yeah. We're prepared for that. We hang out in our hammock 5 or 10 minutes every day all summer, so we're prepared.
Well, good. Well, good. Well, thank you so much. I wish you great success in the world of hammocking, and I just thank you for your time and your engagement with us to talk about grief today. So I
Yes,
hope you
ma'am.
have
Thank
a
you for having me.
wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
This episode of My Messy Grief. Grief is a reminder of our love for someone. Grieving is hard work and is meant to be felt, not fixed. If you know a parent grieving the loss of a child, send them our way at p23retreat.org. Likewise, if you want to help to support our ministry, drop by our website to give the gift of hope to a grieving parent. May today be filled with moments of light, even in the darkness and messiness of grief.